Happy Monday, everybody, and I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. So, all right, one of the questions we've had is, we saw the Trump bump, right? The stock market shot up, and we've explained to clients how it's overvalued. And it's not just us. Analysts all over Wall Street are saying, yeah, this is overvalued. When you look at the price to earnings of the companies on the S&P 500 or the Dow, these current prices are not justified by the strength of the companies. It's justified by the FOMO, the emotion running into it. But it still requires money to go into the stock market, right? And so, where has that money been coming from? Well, we expected a recession this last year. And Greg and I, we think we've been in one, a real one. But meanwhile, the official numbers came out that we weren't in a recession. Now, this gets back to politics. And, we were talking last week about how politics influence money and that money influences politics. Well, every politician knows that money and the economy can win or lose an election. Let's look at the election. Trump's number one issue was look at the inflation. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris caused this. You should vote for me. They caused the inflation. They caused the pain in your pocketbooks. Meanwhile, the Harris campaign was saying, hey, everybody, the economy is bad, I know, but it's not as bad as you think, and we're on the right track. They were both focusing on the economy with different policies, right? They know how it works. Well, for the last few years, we've been dealing with massive inflation, the worst inflation we've had for decades, almost 50 years actually. So the Biden administration and then the Harris campaign, they were trying to fix the numbers so that they didn't look that bad. And Greg was talking about how we think there's going to be revised numbers coming out. And if anybody can exploit those to say that the new president caused those, uh, the opponents to Donald Trump will be pointing at him saying, hey, you caused these new bad numbers. And he'll be able to say, no, I didn't. I inherited them. That's the way politics works, right? But what was the Biden administration doing to help prop up the stock market, right? Actually, the other thing is jobs. One of the key components for a recession is having a decline in jobs. And the last jobs report that came out right before the election was that, hey, great news, jobs are up. But then when you looked at those numbers, the only reason they were up were because of government jobs going up. Well, guess who hires those government jobs? The politicians. If you took those government jobs out, there was a drop in job growth. That would have been bad numbers going into an election. All right, now let's look at the money. Where's the money coming from? Well, we saw it during the pandemic. We saw the stimulus funds coming in, right? That was free money coming straight into people's pocketbooks. I say free. We're going to have to pay for it. We're going to have to pay it back, and it unleashed inflation. But we saw all that coming in. Well, that was a sugar high, and the administration wanted to keep that going. How did they do it? They did it through the Inflation Reduction Act. I put that in quotes because it actually did the opposite. They were funneling money into these big federal projects. Like I'm sure you all heard about the electric charging stations where they spent billions of dollars and they came out with two new charging stations. Well, that money went somewhere. Where did it go? That went into the pockets of these subcontractors. That these contractors are probably, just normal people that have families and employees, and they're running their businesses. But then they're spreading that money so much because the money's just pouring in from Washington, and the accountability just isn't there, that the money just didn't end up in the projects that we were hoping they were going to get. It ended up into the pockets. Well, what did they do with that money? They spent it. So, they were buying new Tesla cars. So Tesla stock was going up, or Ford stocks are going up, or they bought new tennis shoes. And so Nike stocks are going up, or they bought a new TV, Toshiba stocks going up, or Walmart, or whatever. So you have that liquidity going into the market. Here is the most secretive form of liquidity that was going into the economy, and that was with the illegal immigrants. We have record that there were hotels being paid for, that the federal government was giving the money straight to the hotel. That's real money. Those are paying electric bills for those hotels, paying the wait staff at those hotels. Illegal immigrants aren't necessarily, they're benefiting with a roof over their head, a really nice roof, but the money's not going into their pocket, but it is going into the hotel. And then that goes out, right? They were also getting debit cards. And here's the hard thing to do. We can't track that. We got debit cards going out. And those illegal immigrants, they're not investing in the stock market, but they are spending that money and they got to spend it quick. So they're going to the grocery store, buying tons of groceries. They're going to the movies, watching movies. They're going to the shopping mall, buying clothes. Those were living expenses, and that is a lot of liquidity that we can't account for that's going into the economy. That frees up liquidity to then go into the stock market. So I think that's where we've seen this excess liquidity that's allowed the stock market to continue to climb. Meanwhile, you've seen households struggle harder and harder. We've seen the national average savings account has plummeted. Savings are gone for most Americans. So meanwhile, the stock market continues to go up. It's a disconnect. And I think back to Greg's point with conflict in this next year, we do think that this is the appropriate term. One of those conflicts we're going to be seeing is a conflict in the data we're getting. I think we're going to be getting real data now that's not going to look as rosy as it has, but it will make sense when you look around and say, okay, I don't like those numbers, but they do make sense. And this explains it. And then at some point, we're going to see a correction in the stock market. And it has to be a massive correction just to get back to fair market value. So the nice thing is, you as clients, if you're clients of ours, we're not encouraging you to invest in the stock market, so you can avoid that. And then at some point, there will be a lot of good opportunities. Okay, enough for that. You all have a great week. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. See you next week.